Distinguished guests, professors, academicians, and fellow students, it is a great pleasure to be presenting in this conference. My name is Oskar Musaev. I'm a master's student in UPC. The topic of this thesis is the actual title of my paper, Transitioning from Tenor to Baritone Through the Lens of an Amateur Singer. During my transition from tenor to baritone, I encountered the following problems. One, a difference in my personal breathing techniques required to sing as a baritone as compared with as a tenor. The problem I encountered was that my breathing was too forced when I sang as a tenor. I needed to relearn to breathe, this time effectively as a baritone. This meant that my breathing technique, which is an essential part of singing, was inefficient. An inefficient breathing technique can affect the progress of a young singer adversely. Two, the inconsistency of hearing the sound of my voice by myself and how it actually sounds like for someone else outside my body. According to scientific research, we hear a deeper version of our own voice through the resonance in our bones as compared to what others hear through the resonance in the air outside our mouth. The difference between the perception of our voice through bone conduction, how we perceive our voice with our own ears during vocalization, and air conduction, how anybody else hears our voice mainly from the vibrations in the air. Okay, in my previous vocal studies, I placed much emphasis on attaining a high G, which is a G4. However, I consistently failed to achieve this and felt compelled to keep trying to achieve this by using the same unsuccessful approach. This resulted in me being unclear about what good singing should be like, and more importantly, how I should sound when I sing well. The only available examples put forth for me by my teacher at that time were ideals to look up to, were the bel canto trained famous singers such as Luciano Pavarotti and Jerry Hadley. When I tried to copy them, this kind of pure bel canto sound, almost in every instance, I developed fatigue in the laryngeal muscles. As a young singer, I lacked adequate instructions and a clear direction as to what the actual problem was in my singing and how I could overcome it. I was not sure if the problem was occurring during my personal practice, private classes, or performances. The same problem was present on all occasions, regardless of whether I sang in a classical setting or in a contemporary one. Perhaps as this was the only way I knew how to sing. So this is the ideal that I was always looking up to. Okay. I clearly remember when my first vocal coach asked me to start talking like a tenor with a higher resonance in pitch, in the effort to classify me in a certain category that is best described as a typical tenor. The lower the note, the smaller the resonance, without using too much chest voice to produce the sound. And the higher the notes, the more head and open voice I should use by directing the sound through the back of the throat and towards the forehead, which was in the words of my then teacher. From what I understood, I was asked to switch the falsetto register and was encouraged to talk in that register. As a result, I completely ignored my low range or modal register because I did not have the opportunity to develop it. Instead, my practice sessions were focused on attempts to reach the high notes while trying to sound like a tenor. This resulted in my singing becoming forced, loud, and limited in the high range due to an incorrect technical approach. A beautiful voice cannot be achieved when a singer consistently sings in an incorrect part of the vocal range. This one was an aria that I sang on my graduation recital, doing my best to emulate a tenor, to copy a tenor, to try to something like fake it till you make it, that kind of thing. The struggle for the high notes is more noticeable at the end of the clip. Okay, it's very difficult to listen to. Next. Yet a few years later, when I was performing at a concert, my future vocal teacher was in the audience and told me that she suspected that I have a tessitura that must be within the range of a baritone, since it did not resonate as comfortably as a tenor would. After taking lessons with her, she explained to me that I am a baritone who is able to sing the low and middle range with ease, and that the difficulties I had with reaching the top notes were due to an incorrect technical approach. Here's a video of a famous baritone, Baritone.
Fallen from grace, God be my witness, I never shall yield till we come face to face, till we come face to face. He knows his way in the dark, mine is the way of the Lord. Those who follow the path of the righteous shall have their reward. And if you fall as Lucifer fell, you'll fall in flames. Stop.
So learning to sing as a baritone helped me to refocus more on my middle and lower range, because those are my strengths. I didn't recognize at that time. After a change of vocal teacher, the subsequent approach to my singing and the reclassification of my voice to a baritone, I experienced significantly less tension and stopped forcing my high notes. On a psychological level, the higher notes became more like a friend to me rather than a subject of fear. It was quite scary every time I had high notes to sing, as I started to believe that they can be attained through a different technical approach. The new approach I learned is when singing notes in the high part of my range, the vocal resonance has to be increasingly shifted to the mouth cavities away from the larynx. Before this, whenever I had to sing high notes, I unconsciously dropped the voice into the back of the larynx because of two main reasons. Firstly, a developed fear of letting go of my modal voice, which would often, modals like a chest voice, which would often result in an uncomfortable sound when attempting high notes. And secondly, I was previously taught to approach high notes like a tenor. When I used to sing as a tenor, I felt relatively comfortable in the middle and lower range. However, never so in the high range. I developed a fear of notes higher than G. Reclassification of my voice to a baritone allowed me to embrace my lower and middle range and take an optimal approach towards singing high notes. Okay. This is me singing as a baritone. By comparison, as I juxtaposed the state of my vocal journey to a few years later in another university while undertaking a master's program, which was in this video. During the first semester recital, there has been a number of changes in my singing and my understanding of it. From my previous ambiguous understanding, I had a more specific series of realizations during my preparation for the first semester and subsequently during my preparation for the second one. A further understanding of the interrelationship, the circumstances around the singer and their direct and indirect effects on the sound produced. During my first semester, due to studying with a new teacher, I became increasingly aware of the importance of vocal placement, which refers to the physical sensations of vibration and movement of air that occurs as a product of the singing process. In my situation, my teacher urged me to maintain this concentration of vibration and movement of air towards a point which moves along the contour of the hard palate towards an inch in front of the upper lip. My understanding of the purpose for the visualization is to concentrate the sound of voice at an advantageous location in the head, which allows my voice easy access into cavities that exist in the head, mouth, larynx, and chest. Psychologically, this proved to be of assistance as I experienced a significant difference as my voice felt and sounded to me and to other listeners more stable. Due to this newfound knowledge, my singing was focused largely on training myself to adopt this method and keep it consistent. In the second semester, I began to face another important aspect of singing, which also affected it profoundly: the involuntary behavior of the muscle in my body that affected every performance. Besides that, another highly important aspect of singing I was almost entirely unaware of was the role of the rest of the body during the singing process. How not only the sensations in the vocal resonators mattered, but also sensations that occurred in the torso and limb areas. I learned that the basis of correct and natural breathing, which I needed, is complete relaxation of as many muscles as possible in order to find the most efficient way of using the most suitable muscles to breathe naturally. Some insight in the Alexander technique was also helpful to get me to work on balancing the weight of my head and using it to help me achieve my task instead of doing the opposite, which was being unaware of the balance of my weight on my head. And as a result of it, a combination of muscles in my body had been constrained. As I was doing the action of singing, the result was evident. Every recital, I became more and more aware of the importance of consistency, physically, mentally, and psychologically. I remember that all three are interrelated and are like dominoes. When one malfunctions, it triggers the other one in a similar way. Throughout the year, I have performed in a few recitals in different circumstances. Looking back at the results of each recital, I believe it is possible to explain in a logical manner from the first-hand encounter point of view of participant, subject of research to benefit anyone else in similar circumstances. The study is necessary as the knowledge produced from the combination of artistic practice reflection and the double loop learning method is aimed at producing new knowledge that is relevant to my unique situation. The combination of my accumulated singing practical experience and the application of the results of juxtaposed reflection as an insider and outsider causes the outcome of information produced to be significantly more relevant for my development as a singer than just drawing from a single loop learning mindset, which limits my thoughts to direct instructions I previously received without questioning their purpose when necessary. Few practical references exist to offer an alternative, practical, and reliable learning method that have undergone a documented personal test and review by the artist that applies it. To aid in learning singing for young developing singers who find the conventional single loop learning method to be less effective than for other singers. The dissertation may be used as a reference to aid and reassure to other singers in similar circumstances to take this different path in their journey of learning singing and continue the pattern of research in that direction for the betterment of the overall pool of knowledge that adds up, brings benefit to their own vocal development. Thank you.